The elderly Muslim woman's face was pressed against the cold marble floor of the bank. Officer Sarah Mitchell's boot was inches from her head as she shouted, "People like you don't belong here." The entire bank fell silent, watching in horror. But 3 minutes later, when the truth came to light, Officer Mitchell's world collapsed. What happened next will shake you to your core. Why would a decorated British police officer humiliate an innocent elderly woman in the middle of a crowded bank? What secret was this woman hiding that would turn everything upside down? Stay until the very end, because this story will change the way you see people forever. Before we continue, please check if you're subscribed to our channel and leave a comment telling us which country you're watching from. Your support means everything to us. On a cold Tuesday morning in London, the prestigious Westminster Bank opened its doors like any other day. The marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and well-dressed clients moved through the lobby with practiced elegance. This wasn't just any bank. It was where politicians, business moguls, and high society kept their fortunes. Officer Sarah Mitchell stood near the entrance, her crisp uniform perfectly pressed, her badge shining under the lights. She had been assigned to security detail at this branch for the past 6 months. Sarah was proud of her position. At 32, she had already received 2 commendations for her service. She believed in order, in rules, in keeping society safe from those who didn't belong. That morning, Sarah noticed the usual faces. Mr. Thompson, the hedge fund manager, always arrived at 9:15 a.m. sharp. Mrs. Pemberton, dripping in pearls and designer clothing, came to check on her investment accounts. Everyone knew their place in this elegant world, but then the automatic doors slid open, and everything changed. An elderly Muslim woman shuffled inside, her worn hijab covering her grey hair, her simple brown abaya dusty at the hem. She carried a small, faded handbag and moved slowly, as if each step caused her pain. Her weathered hands trembled slightly as she clutched a crumpled envelope. Sarah's eyes narrowed immediately. She had seen this before, or so she thought. Homeless people, beggars, confused elderly folks who wandered into the wrong building. This woman clearly didn't belong in Westminster Bank. The woman, whose name was Amira Hassan, looked around the vast lobby with wide, searching eyes. She approached the information desk, where a young receptionist named Charlotte sat filing her nails. "Excuse me, dear," Amira said softly in accented English. "I need to make a withdrawal. Can you help me, please?" Charlotte looked up, her expression immediately souring. She glanced at Amira's simple clothing, the worn edges of her hijab, the calloused hands that spoke of years of hard labor. "Madam, are you sure you're in the right place?" Charlotte's voice dripped with condescension. "This is Westminster Bank. We serve high-net-worth clients. Perhaps you meant to go to the community bank down the street?" Amira's gentle smile didn't waver. "No, dear. I have an account here. I just need to withdraw some money for my grandson's medical treatment. Please, it's urgent." Charlotte rolled her eyes and picked up the phone, but before she could dial, Officer Sarah Mitchell had already begun walking toward them. She had been watching the interaction, and her instincts, or what she thought were her instincts, told her this situation needed to be handled. "Is there a problem here?" Sarah's voice was cold, authoritative. "This woman claims she has an account here," Charlotte said, barely hiding her smirk. Sarah turned to Amira, her hand resting on her belt near her radio. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to see some identification. What's your business here?" Amira reached into her handbag with trembling fingers and pulled out her identification card and a bank statement. "Officer, I'm just here to help my grandson. He needs surgery, and I need to withdraw funds." Sarah barely glanced at the documents. In her mind, she had already decided what was happening here. She had dealt with scammers before, people trying to impersonate account holders, elderly folks suffering from dementia who got confused. "Ma'am, I think you're confused," Sarah said loudly enough for others in the lobby to hear. "This bank requires appointments for large transactions. You can't just walk in off the street." "But I called yesterday," Amira protested gently. "They said I could come this morning." "Please, my grandson." "Your grandson will have to wait," Sarah interrupted sharply. "I need you to step outside while we verify your story." By now, a small crowd had gathered. Other customers watched the scene unfold, some whispering behind their hands, others openly staring. A few looked uncomfortable, but no one spoke up. The bank manager, Mr. Geoffrey Whitmore, emerged from his office, drawn by the commotion. He was a man in his 50s, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his silver hair perfectly styled. "Officer Mitchell, what seems to be the problem?" His tone suggested he already sided with Sarah. "This woman is claiming to have an account here, sir. I'm handling the situation. Mr. Whitmore looked at Amira with barely concealed disgust. Madam, Westminster Bank has very strict protocols. We cannot simply process transactions without proper verification. And frankly, looking at you, I find it highly unlikely that you maintain an account with us. Amira's eyes filled with tears, but she held her ground. Please, sir. My grandson is only 7 years old. He's in the hospital right now. I just need to access my own money. Your own money? Mr. Whitmore scoffed. Do you have any idea what the minimum balance requirement is for this bank? It's $100,000, the crowd murmured. Several people laughed quietly. One man in an expensive suit shook his head and muttered, "Unbelievable." But then something shifted in Amira's expression. The fear and pleading gave way to something else, quiet dignity, mixed with profound sadness. I know exactly what the requirements are, she said softly. I've been a client here for 37 years. Sarah felt a flicker of uncertainty, but she pushed it down. She had committed now. In front of all these people, she couldn't back down. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises, Sarah said, her voice hardening. If you refuse, I'll have to escort you out myself. But I have every right to be here, Amira said, her voice breaking. Please, just check the account number. It's all in the envelope. Sarah reached out and snatched the envelope from Amira's hands. Without opening it, she tossed it onto Charlotte's desk. We'll verify this later. Right now, you need to leave. When Amira didn't move fast enough, Sarah grabbed her arm, roughly, harder than necessary. The elderly woman gasped in pain. Officer, please, you're hurting me. Then cooperate. Sarah pulled Amira toward the door, and that's when it happened. Amira's legs, weakened by age and the shock of the situation, gave out beneath her. She fell to the marble floor with a sickening thud. Her hijab slipped partially off her head, revealing her grey hair. The envelope she'd been holding flew from her grasp, and papers scattered across the polished floor. The entire bank froze. For a moment, there was absolute silence, except for Amira's quiet whimpering as she lay on the cold marble. Sarah stood over her, suddenly uncertain. A few customers looked away, uncomfortable, but still no one helped. Mr. Whitmore cleared his throat. Officer Mitchell, please remove her from the premises. We have actual clients waiting. As Sarah reached down to pull Amira up, a young bank teller named James, who had been watching from behind his counter, did something unexpected. He bent down and picked up one of the scattered papers. His face went pale as he read it. Mr. Whitmore, James called out, his voice shaking. Sir, I think you need to see this. Mr. Whitmore strode over impatiently, ready to dismiss whatever James had found. But when the young teller handed him the paper, the manager's confident expression began to crack. It was a bank statement, but not just any statement. The account name read, Dr. Amira Hassan. The balance showed multiple accounts totaling over $4.7 million. Mr. Whitmore's hands began to tremble. He picked up another paper from the floor, a letter from the bank's board of directors, thanking Dr. Hassan for her continued patronage and her generous donations to the bank's charitable foundation. This can't be right, he muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. Sarah, still standing over Amira, felt her stomach drop. What is it? James had picked up more papers now, spreading them across Charlotte's desk. Bank statements dating back decades, investment portfolios, property deeds, charitable donation receipts, and then something that made everyone in the vicinity gasp. A photograph. It was a younger Amira, perhaps in her 40s, standing next to Queen Elizabeth II at a Buckingham Palace ceremony. She was receiving an MBE, Member of the Order of the British Empire, for her contributions to medicine and humanitarian work. "Oh my God," Charlotte whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. Mr. Whitmore's face had turned from pink to crimson to deathly pale in the span of seconds. He knelt down beside Amira, who was still on the floor, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. "Dr. Hassan," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Dr. Hassan, we didn't realize—" Sarah felt the world tilting beneath her feet. She looked down at the elderly woman she had just manhandled, the woman whose arm she had grabbed so roughly, the woman she had thrown to the floor. Her mouth went dry. "Who is she?" Sarah managed to ask, though she was terrified of the answer. James, still holding the photograph, looked up with a mixture of horror and awe. "She's Dr. Amira Hassan. She was one of the UK's most renowned cardiac surgeons. She performed over 10,000 heart surgeries during her career and saved countless lives. She's also one of the largest shareholders in this bank." The words hung in the air like an executioner's blade. Around the lobby, customers who had been watching the spectacle with amusement now looked horrified. Some quickly turned away, suddenly very interested in their phones. Others simply stared in shock. Sarah's legs felt weak. She wanted to sink into the floor, to disappear, to wake up, and discover this was all a terrible nightmare. Mr. Whitmore was helping Dr. Hassan into a chair now, his hands shaking so badly he could barely support her. "Dr. Hassan, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" Dr. Hassan's voice was quiet, but carried across the silent lobby. "Explain why your staff judged me by my clothing. Explain why I was treated like a criminal for wanting to access my own money. Explain why this officer assaulted me in front of everyone." Tears continued to stream down her face, but now there was steel in her voice. "I wore these simple clothes because I was coming from the mosque," she continued. "I spent the morning praying for my grandson, who is in the hospital fighting for his life. I came here in my prayer clothes because I didn't have time to go home and change. I thought, foolishly perhaps, that after 37 years of loyalty to this bank, after all the investments and donations, that I would be treated with basic human dignity." Sarah tried to speak, but no words came out. Her throat had closed completely. Dr. Hassan looked directly at her. "Officer, do you know why I came to Britain in 1975? I came as a refugee from Uganda, when Idi Amin expelled all Asians. I had nothing but my medical degree and $50 in my pocket. I worked 3 jobs while studying for my British medical certification. I faced discrimination, yes, but I never let it stop me." She paused, wiping her tears with a trembling hand. "I dedicated my life to saving British lives, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, atheist. I never once asked a patient about their religion or their bank account before operating on them. I treated everyone equally. And this is how I'm repaid?" The silence in the bank was suffocating. Mr. Whitmore looked like he might vomit. Charlotte had begun crying at her desk. Even the customers who had laughed earlier now looked ashamed. But it was Sarah who felt the weight of the moment most acutely. She was a police officer, sworn to protect and serve, to uphold justice, to treat everyone fairly under the law. And she had failed, spectacularly. "Dr. Hassan," Sarah's voice cracked as she finally found her words. There's nothing I can say that would—" "You're right," Dr. Hassan interrupted. "There is nothing you can say, but perhaps there is something you can learn." She slowly rose from the chair, refusing Mr. Whitmore's attempt to help her. She straightened her hijab with dignity and looked around at all the faces watching her. "In Islam we have a saying," she said softly. "We are taught, the best among you are those who have the best character. Not the best clothes, not the most money, not the highest position. Character. Today you all failed that test." She turned to James, the young teller who had picked up the papers. "Except you. You saw the truth and spoke up." "Thank you." James nodded, still looking shaken. Dr. Hassan then addressed the entire lobby. "I could sue this bank. I could ruin careers. I have that power." She let the words sink in. But what would that teach? Revenge? Fear? No. "Instead, I'm going to give all of you something much more valuable, a choice." She pulled out her checkbook from her handbag and wrote something quickly. She tore out the check and handed it to Mr. Whitmore. "This is a donation for $500,000 to the bank's charitable foundation. Use it to create a program that trains staff in dignity and respect for all customers, regardless of how they look." Mr. Whitmore stared at the check, tears now running down his own face. "Dr. Hassan, you don't have to—" "I know I don't have to, but I choose to, because someone has to break the cycle of judgment and hatred." She turned to face Sarah directly. The officer stood frozen, her face pale, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Officer Mitchell," Dr. Hassan said, her voice firm but not unkind, "you have a choice to make now. You can let this moment define you as the officer who assaulted an elderly woman, or you can let it transform you into someone who learned the hardest lesson of her life." Sarah's knees buckled, and she sank to the floor in front of Dr. Hassan. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry. You're right. I judged you. I saw your clothes, your headscarf, your accent, and I decided you were less than. I didn't even give you a chance. I don't deserve your forgiveness." "You're right. You don't deserve it," Dr. Hassan said bluntly. "Forgiveness isn't about what you deserve. It's about what kind of person I choose to be." She paused. "I forgive you, Officer Mitchell, but forgiving you doesn't mean there won't be consequences." Dr. Hassan turned to Mr. Whitmore. "I want a full investigation into how your staff treats customers who don't look wealthy. I want that investigation made public, and I want mandatory training for all employees. Of course, Dr. Hassan, absolutely, anything you want. And she continued, her voice growing stronger, I want Officer Mitchell here to participate in community outreach programs. I want her to spend time with immigrant communities, with Muslim families, with refugees. I want her to understand that the hijab she saw as a sign of otherness is worn by doctors, lawyers, teachers, mothers, daughters, human beings with the same dreams and fears as everyone else. Sarah looked up, hope flickering in her tear-stained eyes. You would give me that chance? After what I did? My religion teaches me that people can change, Dr. Hassan said. My life experience has shown me that the worst mistakes can lead to the greatest growth, but the choice is yours. You can hide from this moment, or you can face it and become better. Within hours, the incident at Westminster Bank had spread far beyond those marble walls. James, the young teller, had recorded part of the confrontation on his phone. Not the assault itself, but the aftermath, the revelation, and Dr. Hassan's powerful words. He posted it on social media, and it went viral. By evening, news outlets across Britain were covering the story. The headlines varied: decorated surgeon humiliated at bank, police officer's prejudice exposed, the woman who chose forgiveness over revenge. Sarah Mitchell returned to the police station that afternoon to find her superior officer waiting. She was suspended immediately pending a full investigation. Her badge and uniform were taken. As she walked out of the station in civilian clothes, reporters shouted questions at her. But something unexpected happened in the following days. Dr. Hassan gave an interview where she spoke not about Sarah's wrongdoing, but about the systemic issues that led to it. She talked about implicit bias, about how society conditions people to make snap judgments based on appearance. Officer Mitchell is not a monster, Dr. Hassan told the BBC. She's a product of a society that teaches us to fear what we don't understand. I could destroy her career, yes, but what would that solve? Instead, I want her to become part of the solution. The interview sparked a national conversation. Muslim organizations, civil rights groups, and community leaders all weighed in. Some praised Dr. Hassan's forgiveness. Others argued that Sarah deserved harsher punishment. Mr. Whitmore, the bank manager, was demoted. Charlotte, the receptionist, was fired, but Dr. Hassan personally intervened to get Charlotte enrolled in a cultural sensitivity program instead, even offering to pay for it. People make mistakes, she said, but in Britain, in the country that gave me refuge when I had nothing, we also believe in second chances. 3 months later, Sarah Mitchell stood in front of a community centre in East London. She wore civilian clothes, jeans and a simple sweater, no uniform, no badge. She was no longer a police officer, at least not officially. Her career hung in the balance, dependent on the completion of her community service and retraining program. Inside the centre, a group of Muslim women waited. They were part of a refugee support group, helping new arrivals adjust to life in Britain. Sarah was there to listen to their stories, to understand their struggles, to learn. Among them was Dr. Hassan herself, who volunteered at the centre twice a week. The first few sessions were painful for Sarah. She heard stories of discrimination, of being followed in stores, of having their headscarves pulled off by strangers, of being told to go back to your country, even though many had been born in Britain. She listened to a young mother describe how she was denied a job she was qualified for, only to see the position given to a less qualified candidate who looked more British. She met a brilliant computer science student who explained how she had to work twice as hard to prove herself because people assumed her hijab meant she was oppressed or uneducated. Each story cracked open Sarah's worldview a little more. She began to see how her one act of prejudice was part of a larger pattern, how her assumptions were shaped by years of subtle messaging from media, from society, from her own unchallenged biases. One evening, after a particularly emotional session, Dr. Hassan asked Sarah to stay behind. "How are you doing?" the elderly doctor asked gently. Sarah took a deep breath. "Honestly, I'm ashamed. Every day I learn something new about how wrong I was, how much I didn't understand. Sometimes I wonder if I can ever make up for what I did to you." Dr. Hassan smiled softly. "You can't make up for it, but you can make something new from it. You can be different going forward." "I want to," Sarah said earnestly. "I've applied to rejoin the force, but with a request to work in community policing. I want to build bridges, not walls. I want to be the kind of officer who sees people, really sees them, before making judgments." 6 months after the incident, Westminster Bank held a special ceremony. They unveiled their new Dignity for All program, funded by Dr. Hassan's donation and now supported by additional contributions from across Britain. The program trained bank employees, but its influence had spread to other businesses, schools, and even police departments. Sarah Mitchell was there, invited by Dr. Hassan herself. She had been reinstated to the police force, but in a new role. She now led training sessions on implicit bias and community relations. As Dr. Hassan spoke to the assembled crowd, she shared something personal. "My grandson," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "the one I was trying to help that terrible morning, he's recovering well. His surgery was successful." She paused, looking directly at Sarah. "And do you know who I asked to visit him in the hospital? Officer Mitchell. Because I wanted my grandson to learn what I've tried to teach him all his life, that people are capable of change, that mistakes don't have to define us, and that mercy is stronger than revenge." Sarah stepped forward, her own voice shaking. "I want to thank Dr. Hassan for giving me the gift I didn't deserve, the chance to become better. To everyone watching, listening, or reading about this story, please learn from my mistake without having to make it yourself. Look at people. Really look at them. See their humanity before you see their clothing, their accent, their religion, because the person you're judging might be someone extraordinary, but more importantly, they're definitely someone's mother, someone's child, someone worthy of basic respect." The ceremony ended with Dr. Hassan and Sarah embracing, not as victim and perpetrator, but as two people who had walked through fire together and emerged transformed. The lesson of this story is clear and universal. Never judge another human being by their appearance, their clothes, or their status. The elderly woman in simple dress might be a distinguished doctor. The person who looks different might be someone extraordinary. But even if they're not famous or wealthy or accomplished, they still deserve dignity and respect. In every major religion and moral philosophy, we find the same teaching. Treat others as you would want to be treated. See the humanity in every person. Don't let prejudice blind you to the truth. Today's story ends here, dear friends, but its message continues. If this story touched your heart or taught you something valuable, please subscribe to our channel and share it with others. Leave a comment telling us what lesson you're taking away from Dr. Hassan's example. Remember, the person you judge today might be the person who shows you mercy tomorrow. Choose to see people with compassion, always. Thank you for watching. Until next time, treat everyone you meet with the respect they deserve, not because of who they might be, but because of who you choose to be.